Welcome everybody to our Future Focus series for this week. Today's guest is Sandin Newton from Protege Game Studios. This covers the pathway of arts, AV, and communication. Please note that guests of our Zoom webinar will have view-only capabilities and do not have access to video or audio. Please use the chat feature to ask any questions. I will monitor and ensure that we gather all the questions and help get the answers for you that we can. Also, this session will be recorded. So if you're not able to stay for the whole session, or you know somebody that would really love to get this information, we'll be able to have it on our YouTube channel. So Sandin, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad to have you as a guest. Can you kind of tell us a little bit who you are and kind of your role with Protege Game Studios?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Michelle, for having me join your future focused series. My name is Sandin Newton. I'm the owner of Protege Game Studios. I'm out of my home office today. We're going through a redo of the studio, and it also appears to be my background too, with these posters are blank, and we're redoing that. So we started in 2013 with a premise that we could build a game studio on developed talent we can do internally. And it's a unique story where we started up a membership program, and it ended up into education. Our current studio is in Zealand, inside of a school. We've got two areas. It's a play area, which kind of is a play session area for students to kind of come, pop in, play some of our games that we develop, or just hang out in this kind of a special play area. We've got an Oculus Rift that's set up. Then the other side is our Create Studio. And that's where we develop, train. We have courses out of that studio. Some of the students can come right in the studio, work on some of the professional tools there. And so if we go back to 2013, we were in Lowell, Michigan, and we worked and established connections with local universities, local schools, and developed some top talent that came through our studio. And some of them are in Hollywood right now as voiceover actress. We've got a 3D modeler that does phenomenal work for some of the top games in that. She's in Texas. And then we've got another member that worked in Sony PlayStation, like Farpoint game that was an Oculus Rift type game. And so, and a lot of our other members have they work locally here in West Michigan, work for some top companies like Steelcase, Amway, and have taken what we've kind of motivated them in tech and game development, have taken that on to education and taken that on to a full career. And it doesn't have to be game development. It could be in something in programming, developing applications for companies like Steelcase. So that's a little bit about Protege in a nutshell. You might have additional questions in that, but I definitely would recommend go to our website, protegestudios.com. We do have some games that some of our members have created. We've got that under our arcade area. We've got a couple of videos out there that kind of go in a little bit more depth about what Protege's story is about.
Awesome. And I can make sure for our participants today that they get that website information so they can further explore that. So if I take you back to Sandin, to when you were 15, 16, 17, maybe even in middle school, did you ever think that you would be doing video game design, or let alone own a company that does some of the things that you do?
No. At the time, growing up, and this is going to date it back a bit, this is during the Atari 2600 days where the first game consoles were released in the market. And the kids today are not going to realize when if they go back that far into 2600 Atari and kind of see those games, I mean, they'll be going like, wow, you're dealing with sticks and stones, and this is nuts. It's a whole different I mean, way of playing games and interacting with the visual elements that just, today, there's no comparison. So at the time, I did not know that. I was interested in video games. I didn't know that was a career you could be able to follow or something you can do. There was no promotion behind, how to get to that game development as a career. That was just unheard of. It wasn't until I was in high school, they finally had some computer science labs and stuff like that, but everything was just kind of like in a very factory-esque, where they would just line up these, computers one right after another, and everything was just a very, work with spreadsheets, work with some things, but nothing with video game development.
Wow. Yeah, that you're right. It has come a very long way. I remember those days. And now I look at video games, I'm like, they have sensors where you can actually act out, things, and way, way different. So what kind of experiences influenced your decision to go into video game design and really seek it out as a career for you?
Well, it really started all the way back in high school and learning to type. My dad had said, "Hey, if you want to get out of the factory type thing, don't work in a factory, you want to work in the office, learn how to type." And at that time, you'd have classes dedicated to learn how to type.
Mhm.
And, today kids, they're instantly right on the keyboard right away. They're playing Minecraft, they're doing some of the stuff, doing the keyboard shortcuts and all this stuff. And they're kind of naturally, they're growing into it to learn how to type. But at that time, that was a dedicated class if you ever wanted to type and to get into, into a white collar type job. So that was a pathway for me, which kind of led right into computers, typing, programming, and that. It wasn't until I was I decided to go after a computer science degree at GVSU. Um, that a lot of friends and family would always contact me to say, "Hey, can you help me out with a computer? I'm having problems," and I had a knack for it. So I definitely had an interest. I then decided to pursue the degree at GVSU. And at that time, that's when the internet was kind of all on our radars. What is the internet and what it's about? So, it was right at that time that I was pursuing that degree. And I did take a different route. I took a few years before I decided on pursuing that and kind of like tested different things out in the marketplace if I wanted to do it. That was typing, general typing and things, and jumping around to different businesses, working in their office. And then, boy, I was a bartender once. I was in sales. I, I just jumped all over the place until I decided, this is the pathway for me.
Awesome. And I think, some of those experiences like you talked about, bartender and sales, I'm sure you gleaned a lot of customer service,
Yes.
a lot of, because you have to sell your video games. So all of those kind of probably played a part. All of our experience do play a part in sometimes where we land and add to our jacket, if you will. Um,
Yes.
so you were talking about your degree at GVSU. Can you tell us a little bit about what degree you have
Mhm.
and or what degrees or background that you look for when you're looking to hire people to work in your design studio?
Well, I have to go back and correct something. When I started in pursuing a degree, at that time, if you remember, all the information was on a computer disk. It was multimedia was in. So I was balancing between me. I wanted to get into multimedia and producing some of these CDs and that. And like I said, the internet was hitting at that time. Information was accessible at our fingertips. We started to realize we didn't need to have all this information on a disk, a physical disk. You'll purchase, put it there, and do this. You can access it from the internet. So it quickly died as a career path. And at that same time, I discovered programming. And so
Mhm.
that's where I decided to switch my degree towards computer science. So I have a bachelor's in computer science from GVSU. Now,
Okay.
the computer science degree, everybody thinks, oh, that's just programming software. For the most part, most people that pursue that end up in that career path, but it does cover a wide breadth of different disciplines within that. So you can be everything from like chip research, computer hardware, technology or research in that space, all the way up into software development and coding. So I did complete that. I started as an internship with one of the local companies. I was hired in. I bounced around a little bit. I worked for Kellogg's, application development, and I did pursue and completed a master's in business administration. And so I do have those 2 degrees. I've got a master's in business and in computer science. So I've married those 2 together with Protege.
Yeah, I can see that because owning your own business, it's probably very helpful having that business background, and how you've been able to, and you're absolutely right. I was of that, I think you and I are of the same era, to where I remember when email was starting to be a thing when I was just ending my college career. And so it's amazing to see where it's come, and I can only imagine where it will continue to go. But that's interesting. You brought up how when you started your degree, how the thing that you were going to pursue quickly kind of died and you went into programming. And that's why it's really important as students are looking at future careers, because careers are changing really quickly in this job market. And sometimes we have things like job outlooks that help us to kind of get a forecast, if you will, of what jobs may be available in the next 5 years, so that if they know they're going to pursue something, they can kind of look to see, are there going to be a lot of hiring or is there not? And so those are really good, helpful things. But with technology, it's probably very important. And would you agree in your business, kind of leaving yourself open for what opportunities might come about that you don't know of yet?
Absolutely. The world is changing very quickly. Technology innovations and things that we didn't think of uh, are quickly all of a sudden becoming part of our lives. For example, virtual reality. That was a thing, in the 80s, 90s, and they kind of dabbled with it. But boy, has that really kind of transformed into a realistic and very a technology that everybody's using in their industries now. I mean, it's kind of being into education. It, it's where you can be able to broadcast this information right to a work site. So if an electrician is able to look at a panel and they didn't have any information about it, they can quickly put on a headset and be able to display all that information right in front of them. So it's really changing the game and how we deliver the information. And like we said, hey, the internet was a big thing. We had a computer monitor and we had a keyboard, but now that's accessible, of course, through mobile phones, but now it's accessible in real-time displays that might overlay things that you were seeing, but new information is being posed on that. That's one thing, and that's what we're discovering. We're also applying that technology in the games, and we've got an escape room type game that we've been working on. It allows us as a platform to be able to kind of experiment with some of the interactions that somebody has with a headset that is also interacting physically within the game. And so sensors and stuff like that exist on, heads, your hands, or tracks your head motion, and that would affect how it's being interacted within the game. So that also bridges across into commercial side, regular businesses, and so I like to think that video game development is in the cutting edge of a lot of the stuff because they like to apply things like artificial intelligence, whether or not you're battling bots or something in a video game. Those things have been applied in games and tested, and now that's starting to really kind of be a thing out in the industry, dealing with data sets and kind of figuring out things beforehand. Of course, we're seeing that driverless cars and
Yes.
automation, across this. So that's a long way of going across a lot of these different things that are coming at us from different ways. And so you have to be, exposed to these different kind of disciplines. And that's from reading, arithmetic, math,
Mm.
and those base fundamentals that you don't think you're going to apply, it really comes in handy down the road. Because if you have many different things that you're into, like you're saying, work experience, that could come back in a significant way if you're working on projects. They say, hey, that has application here, or you would think of something that no one else would because you had that experience. And so the more that you can be able to put in, the better you are going to be to adapt to the changing tide that's happening in front of us. And so,
That's helpful to know and helpful to hear for our students, that being able to take from their experience background. You mentioned that you had an opportunity for an internship while you were in college.
mm,
Now, a lot of our students have opportunities for internships in high school, or job shadows or things like that. So if they have an interest, they can kind of try that on for size. Is that something that is an opportunity at Protege Game Studios? And what do you think is the value for an experience like that for a student?
oh, I think it's invaluable. I think giving an experience while you're still in school, kind of see behind the curtain, if you will, what actually goes on, behind, like an industry very interested in video game development, what happens behind actually happening in a game studio. You
Right.
see that with so many times, kids playing, games, and they say, oh, I could do this, I could do that, I could definitely become a computer programmer. But once they realize behind the scenes what goes into it, it really opens them up to say, wow, that is something I would be interested in, or that's not something I had, intended. I really want to go into cooking, or something.
Yeah.
So, totally opposite. So, it's great to get your hands and feet wet and dive right into these things and experience that before you make a commitment. Like I said, I make changes in my career or in education at that time, with new information or new opportunities that come along, say that's more of a fit for me. That
Yeah.
makes sense. And so an internship is important. For us, we work directly with Fair State University's DAG program. And so we kind
Mm.
of work with our internships out of that, but we do have a membership program, and we've starting to kind of get back into a career type focus for students and allowing them to be a part of the studio as apprentice internship sort of thing. So we're
Okay.
looking to expand that back into high school.
Oh, awesome. And so when you talk about that being a membership, is that something they have to sign up for, pay for? How does that look? Or what will that look like as you're getting more back into it?
Yeah, I can go, well, I can explain from our past experience. It probably would change a little bit. When we opened up our studio in 2013 in Lowell, we had that where they have to sign up for classes. We had a
Yeah.
pathway established. They had different levels to obtain based on the amount of projects that they were a part of and what they would pay for in these courses. We learned a lot from that. We had over 150, well, probably a little over 120 members in our program at that
Wow.
time. And then we had to make decisions to be able to move on. And that's where we ended up into a school, with a studio. So we kind of got away from that, but we want to go back into our membership program, lessons learned, and rebuild that back up, because we think that's a really unique way to build up talent within the studio, have a career pathway they can be able to experience, explore, and learn a lot about technology, and then apply that to whatever they get into. And like I said, it could be
Oh,
cooking for all we know. A
yeah.
lot of technology is applicable to cooking and changes that are happening there. So anyhow, it's something we want to bring back with our membership.
Oh,
We do offer courses online, so high school students can be able to take that through what's called 21F in Michigan, and they can be able to take these classes if they're high schools or ISDs don't offer it. They can take our game development courses through that.
oh, that is great information. Thank you for sharing that, Sandin. And
Yeah,
as you start to develop that more and more, I'd love to connect with you further so we can get that
right.
information out to our districts. that as you get those classes more established, that would be awesome. Going back to, like you were saying, the changing view of technology and how it's always changing. If there's a student in middle school or high school that is interested in something like this, what are some of the skills or what are some of the fundamentals that, I mean, you talked about it a little bit, reading, arithmetic, those kind of things. But what are some of those skills that you look for as you're hiring somebody or you're looking to build up talent?
Well, for us, we're in the market for video games, and obviously the kid or the potential candidate is going to have to like games. I think that's kind of given in our area, but I would assume the kid, or student is going to be interested in games if they're talking to us about an internship or be a part of our courses. So really have the spark in their eye, an interest to go further, to ask questions. Make no assumption that just because you play games that you do want to pursue it, but also have a lot of questions at hand to ask to go further. So, communication is important. The social aspect of it, to really kind of, for us, really have a passion, for whatever you do. So whether or not it's something they're pursuing for sound engineer development or animation or 2D or 3D artist, programming, game engine programming, right now, there's no more better opportunity than now to start getting into that as a middle schooler, because there's so many free tools, there's so many free game engine type game development platforms that are out there that they can download and get started right away. There's great tutorials, there's great community around it. Everything's exciting. I mean, like I said, it's free. You don't have to put, except for time and interest. And so these days, we're looking to say, hey, what have you done? Show me something in a portfolio. That could be something very traditional. We had one of our members, I talked about her a little bit early on, where she's now a 3D artist working for game companies. She was a traditional 2D, traditional artist. She was a drawing and everything like that, but her skill set, we could be able to teach and train her quickly to move over to 3D and computer design. And so she had the eye for it. She had the skill set. She could be able to translate her ideas into something tangible. And so for us to train her into 3D was a very a realistic path for her. And so I guess what I'm saying is that, if you like to doodle, you like to do stuff on paper, maybe you're an artist, you have a passion towards that. We can, explore that, expand on that. And there's no reason not to get into these things, especially when there's free tools and applications that are out there and communities around that to get into that passion. And so we have different disciplines that go into a game. And a lot of kids don't know that it's just not about programming. It's about, art. It's about animation. It's moving. Video games are about interaction. Which makes it much different than movies or videos or something they're watching, the animation online. It's the interaction within that changes up the storyline to something different. And
Yeah, I was just going to say storytelling, it is,
it's big.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And if you like to write stories, you like to have that goes into games, So there's a lot of different aspects that go into a video game.
That's and like you said, sometimes you don't think about that. You just think about the programming aspect of it. So I'm glad that you shared that. So can you share with us what a day in the life of Sandin is like at Protege Game Studios?
Well, we're a small studio, so I'm still wearing many different hats. I've got the business side of things I got to take care of. I'm redesigning the studio there in Zealand, so I'm working with some artists and design layout people in office layouts to kind of redesign the space. And so I'm having to talk to them. I'm having to kind of like sit down with them and try to draw out things and how I envision what this next space would look like. At the same time, I'm also working with a team to discuss the projects and things that we're working on. And so for me, it's wearing different hats at different days, different meetings that are set up, and kind of have to set down what you were just talking about or doing with the project and be able to shift gears. And it could be on marketing, today in a
Mm,
meeting, or it could be in financial type end of it, all the way into programming. Why doesn't this thing work? Well, let's spend some time kind of like, breaking it apart. So
yeah.
right now I'm, you know, and that's what happens when you're a business owner. You're going to have to wear many different hats for
I think
sure.
that's important. Yeah, that's important to know. And you kind of also explained a little bit about the business of video games, that there's also different hats that you wear. There's the financial piece of how you have to deal with the financial end of it, the marketing. How do you market your games? How do you um, design things within them, and the programming piece? So there's lots of different aspects of it. One of the questions that we just got is what is normally on those whiteboards behind him? He said he was in the process of changing them. So what is normally on those?
Yes, I've been meaning to change it. In the back here, I had posters on. I don't know if, well, I guess they redid the movie Tron. I don't know if anybody remembers the movie
Oh,
Tron.
yeah.
There was I think two of the posters were the interpretation of the Tron character. The other ones, I think we had Hulk. And now this is my home office, so we had Hulk. I had Hulk on here, and I don't know if I had Spider-Man, one of the other DC characters and stuff like that was on there. But I decided I need to take that out and put some of the posters we have for our games or for the student type games that we do. And I think that'd
Yes.
be kind of nice if you're doing a Zoom call with some of the students or people in the studio. We would recognize some of the stuff that we've done and put that up on the backdrop. So
Yeah.
it was time to do it at the
Change
same
them
time.
out.
It's all, yeah, change it out. And it's also to interpretation. Maybe it's just, the white background, who knows what could go in there, as a creative endeavor,
Yes.
what could go back in there next. And so,
Yeah. Getting those creative juices. And I would think too, in your job or video game design as a whole, that you're really looking for problem solvers, thinking outside of the box, um, creative and innovation thinkers, because you're constantly doing new and changing things. Would that be a correct statement?
yes, absolutely. I think that's intangible. I think the classic thing is thinking outside the box, but basically you might have problems and things, issues that come up. You're going to have to try to figure that out. How are you going to approach that? What kind of questions can you ask about that to be able to kind of like get to an answer and, pursue that? So we're constantly dealing with that all the time. Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. So as we kind of wrap up our time that we have with you, Sandin, and I just appreciate you taking the time today and not, sharing the view of the lens from your world as a business owner, video game design, a little bit about your path, some of the skills needed. But what would be that final word of wisdom that you would give to a middle school or high school student interested in video game design or interested in computer programming, something in that vein? What would be that word of wisdom that you would give to them?
There's no better time than now to jump in and start discovering how to create these games. There's tools available online. Like I said, there's community, there's social interaction, there's stuff that you can be able to dive right into. And you kind of see that right now with what is it? Some of the game Roblox and Minecraft, of course, where it's a kind of like a pseudo creative environment. They're creating, they're discovering, they're socially engaged, and they're building up this world.
Yeah.
So if they want to pursue it, I mean, there is so much information, so much opportunity to just kind of dig right in, explore, take some of these ideas you might have and see if you can kind of develop it and see if this is something you really want to pursue.
I think that's really great advice. We always tell students too is, find out all that you can so you can make the best decisions going forward. Sometimes that's having an in-person experience, or sometimes that's like you're saying, dive in, find all you can, try it on for size, and see where it might lead you. So Sandin, thank you so much for joining us today. I will keep you
Thank
on
you.
after I stop the recording, just to finish up some last housekeeping things. For those of you that joined us today, in the next 24 to 48 hours, you're going to receive an email, some asking your feedback on this series, and with a short survey. So if you could fill that out, that will really help us as we go forward and create more of these opportunities for you to learn about lots of different careers and career paths. So thank you for joining us today. And we hope to see you the next time on the next Future Focused.
Thanks, everyone.